established to ensure that these long-term interventions are translated into sustainable, uninterrupted water supply, particularly in communities that continue to experience measuring or recurring outrages. Thank you so much, Deputy President.
Thank you, Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. The Minister of Water and Sanitation held a water indaba last year, where we came up with a number of resolutions that will assist provinces and municipalities and all water authorities to be able to manage our water supplies. We found that often the challenges of water are created where infrastructure is not maintained. So that's one of the important issues that we have raised, that it is important that water authorities should maintain infrastructure, invest more in water infrastructure, and also attend to problem of leaks. We lose a lot of clean water through leakages or leaks that we see all over the country. So that's what we have emphasized to all these water authorities that are there in all provinces, to ensure that the bulk supply of water should be reliable. And in fact, as we speak now, that is something that we are succeeding on. Our challenge now remains reticulation, particularly in municipalities. So that's where we're going to focus to ensure that municipalities, once water reaches the reservoirs in municipalities, the water must then reach households and businesses. It's one thing to have bulk water supplies to municipalities and you have reservoirs full, but if that water doesn't reach households, there's no water coming out of their taps, then would not have resolved the problem. So we are monitoring the implementation of all those resolutions through the water task team that the President has appointed me to lead last year. We meet with all municipalities and all water authorities throughout the country to ensure that we have reliable water supply to all our communities. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. The second supplementary question is from Mr. S. J. Moore.
Mr. Deputy President, Saturday is Human Rights Day, yet as I speak to you, the right to water is being violated. The same worst affected communities in Johannesburg, such as Melville and Lenasia, are once again without water, and Melville has now gone 11 days in a row without water because of the long failing Hurstville reservoirs. Now the project meant to fix them is under threat because contractors have not been paid for 2 months. You mentioned Brixton. We saw the same in Brixton, where non-payment delayed the tower and reservoir project for months. You have chaired the water task team during this crisis, yet Johannesburg Water still stands with hundreds of millions of rand in overdue creditors, while project after project is delayed. Why should residents believe that your intervention is making any difference at all? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Member, those are some of the issues we are attending to. In fact, yesterday we had the inaugural meeting of the Water Intervention Committee that is chaired by the President. We call it WaterCom. And the idea there is that national government should have the powers to intervene directly where we have challenges such as those that you are alluding to in municipalities. Not that we will take away the functions of municipalities, but we're going to make sure that we don't just leave everything to them and say, you sort it out. Through this committee, we are bringing a group of experts. We're bringing the provinces themselves. The president will convene the PCC, which is the Presidential Coordinating Council, where we are going to sit with all the premiers to be able to discuss how we intervene on this issue of water, because it is a crisis. And as you correctly say, even as we go throughout the country, we still find out that in some areas, issues have not been resolved. So this committee met yesterday, chaired by the president. We're meeting again next week, once we finalize our terms of reference, and we will be sending teams out to all provinces, particularly where there are these challenges. But we will go to all more than 100 municipalities where there are challenges. We will, of course, prioritize those that there are more pronounced problems, like your Gauteng, as was mentioned, Giyani, and some in the Free State, KZN, and so on. But we will reach out to everybody to resolve those problems. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable Van Rooyen.
Madume, Deputy President, re amogela as MK Patori, di masepala di na le maikarabelo a go berekana le bothata bo ba metsi. But we also want to emphasize to you that the national oversight responsibility ultimately rests with the minister responsible under the National Water Act and the Water Act Services Act. And now, given the well-documented failures in Johannesburg, including aging infrastructure, governance breakdowns within Johannesburg Water, and allegations of corruption linked to outsourced tanker contracts and sabotage of water infrastructure, are there any specific instruction as a Deputy President that we have issued to the Minister of Water and Sanitation to end the reliance on outsourced tanker system and investigate corruption and stabilize water supply? I don't think this thing wants further commission
Your
and a
time
long
is
time
up,
to be
Honorable Member.
undealt with. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Member. Yes, indeed. You will recall that during SONA, the President sent the Minister of Water and the Deputy and the Minister of COCTA to Gauteng to intervene. So they were not at SONA. They had to go there and met with the Premier and the Executive Mayor of the City of Johannesburg and their officials to deal with this problem of water. So the instruction to the Minister of Water and Sanitation to intervene has already been issued by the President to be able to do so. I then went to Joburg myself to follow up on the implementation to make sure that things are fixed, but also that there are plans to ensure future reliable supplies. I'll give you, for example, in Johannesburg, when I was at Carlsworth, they are already building a 20 million or mega million water reservoir, which once completed next year, it will have the capacity to give reliable water in that area for another 20 years. In addition, the private sector in the same area is building a 10 million one, which will add this to 30 million. So those initiatives are already rolling out. And as I said earlier, that Rand Water is also increasing the capacity. So we have asked the Minister of Water to be on the ground, not only in Joburg, as they did, but we're also going to go to Limpopo because we've been told that there's a problem in Guyana. I was there before, a lot of water in the dams, but not reaching the people. So we're going to get there as well. Yes, indeed, the Guyana problem has been there for some time, and that's why we need to go back, because the issue of dams was long resolved. It's a question of reticulation, as I say. And because in the rural areas, people are far apart and the topographic. So there is a big challenge. And we've then said to Minister of Water, also introduce the issue of groundwater, so people can be able to drill, or municipalities can drill and get water for people with the water mafia tankers. So what government is going to do is to buy the trucks, the insourcing that you're talking about. So we will insource and make sure that it is the government that have the capacity to supply. So that's what we're going to do. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable MP Kobe.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Deputy President, during the COVID-19 pandemic, 500 billion of relief funds were unashamedly looted by brazen political actors who sought to profit from the crisis while thousands of our people died. Today, similarly, we have billions that have been dedicated towards this water crisis under what Honorable Galanga said is your decisive leadership. Now, Deputy President, what accountability mechanism will you use to ensure that the funds that are dedicated towards resolving the water crisis that's used to pay contractors and fund infrastructure projects is not looted by bad faith actors? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Yes, Honorable Member, it is a challenge. The decision we've taken is that municipalities should ring fence water revenue. Now, you will probably would have noticed that in some municipalities, and let's take an example with Johannesburg, Joburg Water would bring in about maybe 60 billion rand or more of revenue, and then it becomes a good revenue base for the city to do other things. And we are saying to them, we're not saying they must take all that revenue to water, because obviously they need to perform other functions, but a sizable amount of revenue that is derived from water should go to fix water infrastructure and support maintenance of water infrastructure. So if a municipality can bring about 20 billion from water, surely they should be able to allocate close to 4 or 5 billion directly to water, rather than allocate 1 billion out of the 20. So I'm making an example like that. But that in principle, we are now going to ensure that we ring-fence revenue that's come from water to prioritize dealing with water infrastructure and maintenance. That's the decision we've taken. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable Mr. Zelanga.
Honorable Deputy President, given the undeniable successes of the coordinated approach to the energy crisis, which has been load shedding, being a thing of the past in our country, how is the establishment of the National Water Crisis Committee, as pronounced by the President during the SONA, intended to be complementary with the water tax team in accelerating solutions to the country's water crisis?
Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, indeed, as I indicated earlier, Honorable Member, that the President has established this national water crisis, similar to the national energy crisis that was established when we had load shedding. But of course, as I said earlier, the committee met for the first time yesterday to finalize its terms of reference and also the action plan. And we've agreed with the President we'll meet again next Tuesday to finalize our action plan. Now, the challenge with this crisis committee, as opposed to the one that was dealing with electricity, is that with electricity, in the main, you are dealing with one entity, ESCOM. There and there, you have municipalities that generate, but in the main, more than 90% of electricity in this country comes from one entity. When it comes to water, you have a plethora of water authorities throughout the country. The responsibility for water is with municipalities, and therefore the task is going to be much bigger than the other crisis committee. But we are now preparing. We want to accelerate infrastructure development, ensure that we address challenges in municipalities, and also ensure consistent investment in the infrastructure for water. Because if you look at the challenges other municipalities, you can see that for a number of years, there was no investment in water infrastructure. It's decaying, and therefore leads to leaks and a loss of a lot of water, what they call non-revenue water. Basically, non-revenue water is water lost to the ground, revenue that is gone. Close to 40% of some municipalities lose their revenue that they're supposed to get from water. But with this committee, our idea is that in addition to ourselves as political leaders, we'll be accompanied by a number of specialists, engineers, and so on that we're going to deploy down there to municipalities to fix the problem. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Malibongwe.
Thank you, Deputy President. Umbuzo wesibili ubuzwe ilonga elihloniphekile umnumzane uNodada. Umbuzo umayelana nenkulumo usekela mongameli ayenza ezingxoxweni zesibili zohlelo lwaziwa ngokuthi phecelezi iFrank Dialogue. Mayelana nekusasa lohlelo lokuthuthukisa labo ababecindezelwe ngokomnotho phecelezi i-broad-based black economic empowerment. Leyo nkulumo wayenza eThekwini mhla zingu-1 kuMarch 2026. La aqinisekisa khona ukuthi uhulumeni uzimisele ukuthi enze uhlelo lokubhekisisa kumbe nokucubungula lolu hlelo. Ufuna ke ukwazi umnumzana uNodada ukuthi ngabe ngubani ozokwenza lolu cwaningo, kanti futhi ngabe usekela mongameli unayo yini imininingwane yokuthi lolu hlelo lizokwenzeka kanjani? Sekela mongameli.
Ngiyabonga somlomo. Ngizawuphendula ngesingisi.
Ulungile.
Ngoba ngasuka ngibhayize mangathi ngilanda ngesizulu. Honorable Speaker, let me firstly thank Honorable Nodada for raising this critical question about government's commitment to triple BEE review. Honorable Nodada, indeed, during the second Frank Dialogue on the future of triple BEE in Durban, I highlighted that government is embarking on a two-phase review of the triple BEE framework led by Minister Pakstow and the DTIC. The review will occur in two phases. Firstly, it will be a short-term one and then a long-term review. The short-term review aims to refine and assess subordinate laws, including regulations, code of good conduct, guidelines, practice notes, which are under the minister's legislative authority. The long-term review is the prerogative of Parliament, which will involve the review of the BEE Act for substantive amendments. This process will also be supported by the BEE Commission and other oversight bodies to ensure credibility and enforcement. The review will focus on strengthening BEE by shifting from compliance to measurable outcomes. The review further aims to strengthen the execution of Section 9(2) of the South African Constitution, focusing on reimagining economic transformation and accelerating the participation of Black South Africans in the economy. Among other critical interventions, the review includes the following: improve the effectiveness of BEE implementation, strengthen implementation gaps and compliance, setting timelines for achievement of milestones, and lastly but not least, provide for a strong linkage between BEE and growth path and industrial policy. In conclusion, Honorable Speaker, let me reiterate this point that without any fear of contradiction, abandoning BEE is not an option. Abandoning BEE would in truth be abandoning transformation. So BEE is a necessary tool for transformation, essential for achieving economic equality, and we're going to proceed to implement it. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Siyabonga, Sekela Mongameli. Isichibiyelo sombuzo wokuqala sizobuzwa ilungu elihloniphekile uMnumzana uBahrain.
Bahrain.
Leading government's business, Mr. Deputy President, whether the review of BEE will be alongside alternatives like the DA's Economic Inclusion for All Bill and the policy that creates most jobs and narrows inequality will be implemented.
Sekela Mongameli.
I was struggling to hear the honorable member, if he may repeat.
Okay, I'll ask him again.
If you can help me, Honorable Speaker, I was struggling to hear.
Honorable member, if you can please repeat your question.
Thank you. Leading government's business, Mr. Deputy President, whether the review of BEE will be alongside alternatives like the DA's Economic Inclusion for All Bill and the policy that creates most jobs and narrows inequality will be implemented. Thank you.
Sekela Mongameli.
Okay, no, I've heard the honorable member now. Honorable member, all the time when we review policies or legislation, we do have public hearings that takes place, and that is to enable all South Africans who are interested to bring forth their suggestions, their comments. So if the DA has some clever ideas, you are allowed to bring them forward, we will look into them. If we think they don't make sense, we'll throw them away. But we'll give you a chance to bring them because I think it's only fair that we should hear how you think you are going to help us. And if they are good, I can assure you we will incorporate them as we do the review. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Ngiyabonga Sekela Mongameli. Ilungu elihloniphekile MC Dikgale.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Deputy President, in light of the response provided regarding the plan to phase review of the broad-based Black economic empowerment framework, what measures will government put in place to ensure that the review not only evaluates the existing empowerment indicators and scorecard elements, but also addresses the practical challenges faced by the Black-owned businesses and emerging entrepreneurs in the accessing markets, finance, and procurement opportunities? Furthermore, Deputy President, will the review consider strengthening monitoring and enforcement mechanism to ensure that the broad-based Black economic empowerment compliance leads to tangible economic participation and ownership rather than purely administrative compliance?
Sekela Mongameli.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Dikgale, you are correct. Often in the past, focus was what I would call administrative. We focus on compliance, we do score sheets and all of that, which is okay. But we have taken a decision that we need to shift to more empowerment approach where we look at the implementation of programs that really empower Black businesses. So that's what we're going to look at to ensure that we look at some of the issues coming from the BBBE Commission, but to be able to emphasize that let's expand the measures that we are putting in place, but not end up focusing too much only on compliance, but also on implementation. Getting these businesses to be able to work to ensure that they have real projects, real businesses that they are running. We shouldn't end up only with compliance. As you say, it is administrative, yes. It helps us to see what is happening, where the challenges are, but we definitely need to expand and do much more to ensure that BBBE is really implemented in a real way. It's not just a paper thing. We need to go out there and see that these people are involved in real businesses. And they must be visible, those businesses. That will give us a sense of the progress we are making. But thank you very much for raising this matter sharply. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Siyabonga ilungu elihloniphekile uNkwankwa.
DP, for us to clarify, the discussion is not about whether we need BEE. We do. The discussion is about whether or not we need it in its current form, which is what you are seeking to address. But ingxaki Sekela Mongameli sisoloko silila emngcwabeni orongo. Kuba ingxaki into basimane siyokhangela ukuthi abantu bano-owner u-10% no-5% we-businesses zabelungu. Ndawoni yoba si-address i-market concentration by making sure ukuthi sifaka abantu bethu bafundwe. In addition to this review, akufanelanga ke ngokusekela Mongameli kujongwe ukufundwa kwe-DFIs ezincedisa ufunda i-BEE program so that our people can begin to control and own the means of production. Bangabe bowulile emngcwabeni orongo. Enkosi.
Enkosi Sekela Mongameli.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I agree with you, Honorable Member, that we do need to fund these agencies, departments that empowers the previously disadvantaged, particularly black people. But it's also important for us to be able to have reliable ways of ensuring that indeed those resources will go to these emerging businesses, these triple BE companies. One of the challenges we have to deal with very sharply is a question of fronting. So when people, as you say, people say you can get 10% here or 30% in this company, but sometimes that's not real empowerment. Some of the companies, we do it for compliance. So if you go to their books, you'll see that they have somebody maybe with an African name who's got 30% there. But really, that's where it ends. It's just a name. Sometimes the person doesn't even know. Or if they know, they think, oh, maybe I'll get something. And that's not empowerment. Empowerment must mean real involvement in business. Black people in this country must build enterprises, not be happy that I have 10% of a Van der Merwe business. We want to see black people building factories, building businesses, and not be happy with some 10% here, 20% here, which in most cases is not even real. It's just Marau, you are not a business person. So let's see entrepreneurs. That's why one of the things, Speaker, we are doing is to train young people to become entrepreneurs. And not go and queue for the 10% of, Van der Wald's business and all that. No, they'll start their businesses. We as government will make sure that the resources that are with our DFIs, our departments and agencies, must give these enterprises support to be able to run real businesses. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Ngiyabonga Sekela Mongameli. Ilungu elihloniphekile elilandelayo ngumbuzo walo ngu-Honorable Vizungula.
DP, given how the triple BE was intended to transform the economy, especially in light that over 90% of the country's economy is in white oligopolies. However, what you say is different from what is being practiced. IDC is currently exposed by Fezile Dlamini in that it funds white companies instead of black entrepreneurs. If you go to the PIC, it manages over 3.7 trillion in assets, which are coming from black workers' pensions. However, less than 200 billion of that is invested in majority black-owned companies. Go to government spending. The government has got a budget of 2.7 trillion. Over 80% of that goes to big white companies. And black SMMEs are only getting less than 20%. So how do you reconcile what you say in speech versus what is practically happening? Because white companies are the biggest beneficiaries of the economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Sekela Mongameli.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Member, your observation is correct. Many of the funding institutions tend to fund listed companies. And we all know that on the Joburg Stock Exchange, most of those companies are white-owned businesses. We have looked into this matter and we're going to tighten the rules, particularly where we have control with the DFIs. You mentioned some of them, to say you have to fund unlisted businesses as well. Because I know sometimes the argument will be we want to grow the cake for our members of these pension funds and these investments. But we have to fund unlisted businesses, most of them emerging, most of them involved in infrastructure. If South Africa want to drive growth through infrastructure, then resources must go also to companies that are not listed on the stock exchange. And that's a very important observation, that these resources are not finding their ways, and we need to tighten the regulations of these institutions. We have noticed that ourselves, and we are going to intervene to make sure that resources must support growth, and growth that is driven even by unlisted companies that are involved in infrastructure development, most of them or some of them owned by the previously disadvantaged in our country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Siyabonga Sekela Mongameli. Umbuzo wokugcina kulolu hlelo uzobuzwa ilungu elihloniphekile uBahrain. Honorable Bahrain.
Mr. Deputy President, in your remarks at the dialogue on triple BE, you also mentioned that the review into BE is aimed at reducing corruption. How is this not your admission of BE benefiting a select few, which the evidence confirms of R1 trillion circulating around 100 connected hands? Thank you.
Sekela Mongameli.
Mangbonge Somlom, Honorable Bahrain, the review of the Triple BE Act, amongst others, is to ensure that we broaden participation. Of course, also deal with corrupt practices, but ultimately the goal is to expand. South Africans have been very concerned with the fact that the empowerment that we talk about is, benefiting a limited amount of people. So when we come with initiative, including the Transformation Fund that Minister Tau launched, we are targeting to reach many people in our country, particularly young entrepreneurs, women, people with disabilities, etc., so that we move away from this reality that has been observed, that not many South Africans are benefiting from empowerment. And that's why you need to move away from this approach of equity to more supporting real businesses that are involved in projects. Because by doing so, you will then reach out to many, many other people. I'll tell you, as I conclude, that one of the challenges has been the triple BE, or let's say even before, when it was just BE, the approach has been you go and buy shares in a company that is already operating. You don't get it for free. So in most cases, who will buy? Those who have money will go and buy that 10% or the 20%. Government must create platforms for emerging businesses and ensure that they have access to funding, particularly from our DFIs, and the money must go into real businesses and not go and buy shares or a stake in someone's business that is already dying. You waste your money. We must give them money to go and start businesses and run real businesses. So I agree, but we need to make sure that we tighten up when we do this review so that we deal with corrupt practices, but let us expand the resources to people who want to run real businesses, create jobs in this country, and empower our young people. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. We now move to question 3, which has been asked by Honorable SMN Mokoena Zondi. The question is whether, considering his role as chairperson of the Justice, Crime Prevention and Security Cabinet Committee, in the light of the persistent increase in violent crime, unresolved intelligence failures, and persistent dysfunction in coordination between the Department of Police, Justice and Constitutional Development, Home Affairs, and Defense and Military Veterans, the JCPS committee under his leadership has met any of its publicly stated targets in the past 12 months. If not, what targets were not met, and what are the reasons that the targets were not met? If so, what empirical evidence can he provide in relation to the recent...
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Mokoena Zondi is raising a very important matter which concerns all of us regarding the persistent levels of crime in the country, but also persistent dysfunction in coordination between those departments or agencies that are supposed to lead us in tackling this. Honorable Speaker, violent crime remains a grave concern for all South Africans. The JCPS continue to monitor implementation of targets that have been set. Current statistics show that there is visible progress in some areas. Conviction rates for sexual offenses now exceed 77%. Joint operations like Operation Shaniela 2 and Operation Prosper, targeting illegal mining and gangsterism, have resulted in arrests and prosecution. We are strengthening intelligence-led policing and modernizing the justice system to restore safety and trust. In this regard, the JCPS Cabinet Committee will continue to coordinate several strategies that are aligned to the Medium-Term Development Plan 2024 to 2029, which prioritizes strengthening the criminal justice system, improving coordination to ensure effectiveness in policing and reducing violent crime. The recent crime statistics released by SAPS indicate that while some improvements have been recorded in certain categories of crime, overall, levels of crime remain a serious concern, requiring sustainable and coordinated action across government. Government has decided to recruit additional 20,000 new police officers. President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced the deployment of members of the South African National Defence Force for service in cooperation with the South African Police. This deployment serves to prevent and combat crime and support and preserve law and order under Operation Prosper, which is targeting, as I said earlier, illegal mining and gangsterism. The deployed members of SANDF will assist the South African Police to prevent and combat illegal mining and gangsterism in provinces like Eastern Cape, Free State, Gauteng, Northwest, and the Western Cape. The JCPS Cabinet Committee is focused on improving interdepartmental coordination, which of course you have identified as one of the big challenges. We are enhancing intelligence-led policing and modernizing the criminal justice system. We will, Honorable Speaker, continue to implement targeted measures to reduce violent crime and enhance community safety and security. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Chief Whip of the MK Party, Honorable Mokoena Zondi.
Honorable Deputy President, the July 2021 unrest and looting laid bare the critical failures in intelligence coordination and the apparent inability of the National Security Council to convene at a moment of national crisis. Can you outline how the JCPS cluster, which is under your leadership, has remedied these deficiencies? Okunye, esifuna ukwazi ukuthi what indicators, if any, of improved intelligence integration and early warning capabilities and interagency coordination have you or can you present to assure this House that the state is now institutionally equipped to prevent such failures from ever occurring again? Thank you.
Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Zuma, as I said earlier,
Zondi,
Honorable Zondi,
apologies.
we are going to promote.
You must say you like the old man.
We suppose.
You just like the old man.
Order, order.
Honorable
You did not
Zondi,
ask for the point of order.
we have noticed, or let me start from where you started, that with the July unrest, I think it was clear that the lack of intelligence-led policing was clear that it was not there. So in the JCPS, we do have the police, we have the Army, SANDF, Correctional Services, and all other agencies. So the security cluster has the intelligence apparatus there. So when we plan on the basis of intelligence. And as I emphasized in my answer earlier, is that we have now decided that our policing must be intelligence-driven to ensure that we are successful in combating crime. I don't have indicators now that shows the success of this, but we would, when we do our review next time, we will be able to see the success story of this approach. But it is a correct approach. Otherwise, you're shooting in the dark. So policing must be intelligence-driven, and it is now the approach that we are using, not only the South African police, but the entire JCPS cluster has prioritized this matter. And every time when we meet, we get reports on what's happening in the country, proper reports, so that when we deploy, we know that we're deploying at the right place, with the right levels of intervention, so that you don't send 2 police officers when you should be sending 10. That's the approach we are taking. Or you send 10 when you should be sending 2. So we welcome your emphasis on this matter of intelligence-driven policing. That's what we are doing now. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable Mr. M.S. Chabane.
I can, sir. Deputy President, Thank you very much for comprehensive report. Deputy President, South Africans have noted that recent crime statistic released by the South African Police Service has recorded a marginal decline in most of the crime indicators. And amongst the crime indicators, as you've indicated, Deputy President, is a successful breakthrough by the SIU in relation to fraudulent documents issued by Home Affairs, including work permits, work visas. And these indicators have make sure that part of the, among the ANC priorities is to fight against crime and corruption. Deputy President, how will government build on these gains through implementation of the National Organized Crime Strategy in more coordinated and integrated manner across law enforcement agency and intelligence agencies?
Thank
to
you,
ensure
Honorable
sustained
Member.
improvement?
Your time is up. Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Akensa, Honorable Chabane. Iswendlisa sweswo. This thing are intelligent driven. Ita ifuna ngopfu ku ri ilungisa leswi swa crime. When you look at border management control, you look at what we're doing in those areas, or ports of entry and so on, we are now emphasizing this approach, that we must be intelligence driven. You would know that, for instance, we are strengthening our work in Home Affairs on, how we deal with issues of documentation and so on. So there's a lot of work that is happening, and what is really required is integration. For us to be successful, the justice system must be integrated. Because otherwise we're going to have a challenge where police are successful, but when people get to courts to be prosecuted, and then they are let out easily back into the streets. So we are strengthening that. But lastly, something that we often take for granted is community participation. In the past, I'm sure many of you sitting here were involved in street committees and so on. The role of communities in fighting crime is very critical. But if you look at our CPFs these days, they are not being given priority. Many of us don't think they are important. But the communities must always be the eyes and ears of the police on the ground. There's no best intelligence you can get than the one you get from the community. They know them, they know where they stay, and let's strengthen that as well, working with our communities. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Deputy President. Honorable Swart.
Thank you, Speaker. Deputy President, you referred to targets and to crime statistics. However, a very alarming fact, as reported by Rape Crisis Cape Town Trust and other NGOs, is a significant underreporting of sexual offences and rape in particular, with only an estimated 7% of cases being reported, leaving almost 93% of cases unreported. This the ACDP finds concerning. Do you not agree, Honourable Deputy President, that this underreporting significantly skews crime statistics and that far more needs to be done to encourage rape victims to report those crimes and then to protect them from secondary victimization? Otherwise, those predators will escape justice and commit those crimes again. It doesn't help to have 77% conviction rate when only 7.7% of sexual offences are reported. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Swalt, yes, it's important that we avoid underreporting. I was looking at the stats myself when I was looking at this question, but it was difficult to say whether it's underreported. We're going to check it because we do need to get accurate information to be able to respond adequately. And this is a matter we'll discuss once we have evidence that in some categories of crimes, there is underreporting. It shouldn't be. The police, they may not have all the information they need. Obviously, with intelligence driven, we'll begin to get more, but there will be an effort to ensure that we're as accurate as possible to be able to come with plans that will ensure that we respond adequately. And therefore, I take your concern seriously if you think that there's underreporting. We're going to look at it so that we are able to make sure that what we project to the communities, what we tell South Africans is actually what it is. And therefore design intervention that brings them on board to work with us on addressing that reality. And it's important, but I've not noticed that completely that they are underreporting, but I'll check it because they shouldn't underreport. So I will engage with them through the JCPS cluster. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable Dr. M.A. Maimane.
Thank you, Speaker. Deputy President, I am glad you're talking about underreporting. Let me give you just one number. Of the 21 million cases that were reported last year, open cases that were open, only 61% of them were solved, and 13.2 million cases were closed without resolution. So our problem isn't just underreporting. It's the fact that the police don't have capacity. The fact is this: when I come into this parliament, there are 200 police officers here, VIP protectors. There are more police here than in any other police station in the country. The police themselves will tell you that they are running short of over 2,300 detectives nationwide. But we protect the politicians and ignore the people. So my question to you, Deputy President, is whether or not, don't you think the 4 billion rand spent on VIP protection would be better spent giving capacity to the police? Let's help the people rather than the politicians. So, Mr. President, you are running for president. I'm sorry. Are you willing?
Time is up,
Yes,
Honorable
are you
Member.
willing? Are you willing
Order,
to direct
Honorable
resources to the people than
Honorable
to the
Maimane,
politicians?
the
Thank you,
Deputy President heard you, and maybe I can see you are trying to make a new application to go back to somewhere where you can express your voice on the other matters that you have just said, but we are not there yet. Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mohaitsi Dumel. Aware dumedisa kajeno. Honorable Speaker, there are areas in the country that are designated as key points areas, and therefore they need to remain guarded. I can look into your issue of whether members of parliament think that we guard you too much. But parliament is a very important institution. We had fire the other time in the old parliament, and many people were saying, where were the police? So we can't make that mistake. You see, when we are in this precinct here, and the President of the Republic is here, you cannot have the police. Members of parliament are here. You can't get out here and get marked outside of parliament. this is a very important institution, but if you say to me, there's a shortage of police where we are fighting crime, and all of them are sitting here, we'll look at it. But normally, when the commissioners of police deploy, they take into account the events, the institutions that are being guarded, etc., etc. So it's important that those institutions should have adequate police. I did say, Honorable Maimane, that we are now employing more. We have not reached the numbers that we need. The President has announced, you recall, previously 10,000, now 20,000. We still need more. So I agree with you. We need more police officers to be recruited and trained. And of course, we need to then deploy them into crime fighting areas as much as we can. They need to be out there to fight crime and work with communities. Ke a leboga mogaetsho. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Deputy President. Honorable Mokoena Zondi.
Thank you, Deputy President. We as Umkhonto weSizwe find it quite deeply concerning that even after 5 years since the July 2021 unrest, you still have a response to say improvements needs to be made. Does this mean that the government of national unity is finally saying to its people, you have failed the country, you have failed to act with urgency required to secure our country? And if a similar threat occurred tomorrow, are you confident that the current system would respond differently? And if they fail, who accepts responsibility between yourself and the President? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy President.
Mangbonge, Honorable Zondi. Bezega kahle manje. Maybe let me use this phrase. It might help me and you. Improvements are being made, not they are going to be made. So as I speak to you, we are busy. You are quite right to say if it happens again and you still say improvements are going to be made, we maybe find wanting. But I can assure you we are better prepared now. We are better prepared. Those improvements are rolling out. We are equipping. Intelligence is coming in. We will not be caught wanting or caught by surprise. So we have learned our lessons, and our security forces are more than ready to tackle any incident that may come up. But you know, South Africa is a big country, so I go back to the issue of you do need more police officers to deploy as much as we can. But Honorable Zondi, I can assure you that we are better prepared now to deal with the challenges. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. Question number 4 has been asked by Honorable Dr. K.M.N. Gigaba. The question is given that he recently addressed a meeting on the future of broad-based Black economic empowerment and its future role as an instrument of transformation, inclusive economic development and growth. What are the reasons that Triple B has remained marginal to the economy and failed to transform the economic landscape of the Republic? What mechanisms has the government put in place to ensure that the Triple B is utilized to drive the district development model for localization and industrialization in urban and rural areas? Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The question raised by Honorable Gigaba is very important as it helps us to highlight the need for the review of broad-based black economic empowerment policy. We did speak about this earlier on in the first question. Honorable Speaker, BBBE has opened doors for many who were previously disadvantaged. Since 2021 to date, 94 billion rand has been invested in black-owned enterprises, with 72 billion rand in skills development and over 600 billion rand in share transactions. But of course, compliance remains a challenge. So I don't want us to gloat on these figures because we need to make sure that those resources are reaching as many people as possible. We are now strengthening regulations and stricter rules to ensure business compliance. However, we must now move, as I said earlier, from compliance to delivery, aligning BBBE with district development model, but also localization, industrialization, and empowerment that reach both urban and rural communities. These achievements indicate that empowerment is more than an abstract policy. It has been experienced through business growth, community upliftment, and national opportunity expansion, especially for young people in sectors like mining and finance. But despite this progress, the journey towards BBBE continues with the goal of enhancing its impact to permeate all societal levels. Hence, government is embarking on a two-phase review, as we said earlier, of the BBBE framework that I spoke to when answering Honorable Nodata. At the initiation of BBBE, or rather BBBE Act in 2003, and following its amendment in 2013, which established a framework for measuring the policy's implementation, the compliance rate was very robust at the time. However, recent monitoring by the BBBE Commission indicates a significant decline in compliance momentum. The peak number of compliance reports submitted by the commissions in 2019 were 5.818, and this figure has now drastically fallen below 1,500 reports in the current period. Therefore, the focus must shift from mere compliance to effective delivery, ensuring that rhetoric translates into measurable impact, so that we don't just measure the numbers, but we look at the impact of what the empowerment is doing. There is a need to align BBBE with broader industrial, fiscal, and competition policies, transform it from isolated efforts into a catalyst for inclusive growth. Furthermore, we must strengthen enforcement against practices like fronting. It is critical to combat this because it's economic sabotage. Empowerment efforts must be concrete, reflected in job creation, establishment of enterprises, opening of markets, and the significant involvement of women, youth, and people with disabilities. Honorable Speaker, government is accelerating the integration of BBBE into the district development model by incorporating empowerment into District 1 plans, funding black-owned enterprises, and emphasizing localization of SMEs. This alignment ensures that transformation occurs both in urban and rural areas through funding instruments and integrated in planning frameworks aimed at industrialization and service delivery. Lastly, through integration and collaboration, government, in partnership with the private sector, has introduced a transformation fund initiative. This initiative aims to unlock capital as part of a support package designed to grow Black-owned enterprises and accelerate inclusive growth, because we know that often those who were previously disadvantaged, Black people, when they start applying for funding to be able to start enterprises, many of those doors are closed. So we'll use the Transformation Fund as a mechanism to assist in this regard. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Deputy President. I've been informed that Honorable M.O. Siate will take the question.
Thank you, DP. Thank you, Speaker. My question will then be, how is government intending to introduce measurable indicators and time frames to strengthen monitoring of the impetus to transformative capacity of the triple BEE in changing the economic landscape and key economic sectors through comprehensive master plans and direct catalytic investments targeting municipalities in distress, especially in rural areas and provinces?
Thank you, Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Seate, for the follow-up. Indeed, government is already, we're not intending, we are already strengthening the transformative capacity of triple BEE. We are strengthening the indicators, particularly the measurable indicators are being strengthened already. And as you say, how will this review assist? We will recalibrate scoreboards to ensure that we emphasize, as I said earlier, actual, real ownership. We need to be able, when we say we are empowering, we must see people involved in businesses, not just looking at scoreboards. We must see the impact, that here are these entrepreneurs who were funded, who were empowered. This is the business they are doing, this is what they are producing. These are people they are employing, and we are able to see concrete results in terms of empowerment. So yes, we're not intending, we're already doing it. We are making sure that we are strengthening, and will continue to give regular reports to this House to ensure that even the previous policies that were enacted previously, the Procurement Policy Framework Act and others, are being looked at currently to make sure that we strengthen all of them. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable Dr. M.J. Burger.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It seems as if where there is smoke, there's a questionable fire detection and suppression contract. When it comes to BEE, is not the 49 million rand Gauteng hospital contract awarded to your children not further proof that BEE stands for biased elite empowerment?
Deputy President.
I'm not sure what he's talking about. So I'm hearing him talking about a contract awarded to your children. I don't know what contract is that that he wants to deal with. But let me say this, Honorable Speaker, that what we are doing as government is to ensure that when we empower people, we do it properly, no corruption, no favoritism, anywhere. If there are children of the DP somewhere who are being favored by some government department, I will oppose it myself. I will oppose it myself if I find out there's such a thing. At the moment, Honorable Member, there is no illegal, irregular contract which was ever allocated to my children that I know of. If you do have information, you can come and give it to me. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. The next supplementary question is Honorable MV Daniels.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Speaker. To the Honorable Deputy President, the question that I have on behalf of the Patriotic Alliance is not for political grandstanding, but in the interest of South Africa. Honorable Deputy President, to what extent do we accept that elite capture, fronting, and compliance-driven deal-making have weakened the transformative impact of BBBEE, and what concrete steps are being taken to redirect BBBEE benefits towards productive, broad-based participation rather than a narrow group of beneficiaries, for we do know and understand how true it is, the uncomfortable truth that fronting is real. Thank you, Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Yes, Honorable Member, it is true that fronting is real, and that's why we are dealing with it. As we do this review, this is one of the problems. I did say earlier that I, liken it to economic sabotage. Because if people are fronting, it means they are not really in the economy. They are not doing the work. They are not building any businesses. They are sitting somewhere, but their names are used. So, in fact, it must be a crime that is treated seriously. So as we review this as Parliament, let's tighten out these pieces of legislation to ensure that the penalties must be so strong that somebody must never be attracted to get involved in fronting. We want people to run real businesses and ensure that we can measure that they run businesses, not do a desktop analysis and say, oh, yeah, there are so many blacks who are involved in this, they own these businesses, but we don't see it. We need to see those businesses, and we're going to have DTIC and other government departments must go out and ensure that they do have officers who go out to these businesses and see if indeed they are run by black people, as they say. So I agree with you that we must eliminate fronting. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable Ismail Musa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Blessings to this Honorable House and blessings to the Honorable Deputy President. Honorable Deputy President, what measurable outcomes and accountability frameworks are currently in place to assess whether BBBEE initiatives within the district development model are effectively translating into tangible local industrial growth, job creation, and equitable participation of historically disadvantaged communities across both urban and rural districts? I thank you.
Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Member. I did say earlier that we are currently integrating Triple BE into our development model, particularly the one plans. The good thing with that, because these are plans that are being implemented, you're going to see real results. These are involved in implementing it. So the best measurable instrument for me is where people are involved in real businesses. Even if government has to have, officers, whether it's from the Labor Department or DTIC, who go out into businesses to check what is really happening rather than relying on reports. That will help us a lot. And because with the DDM, we are out there as a whole of government, it's even much better. Whenever I go out on the work of the DDM, I meet with premiers, MECs, mayors, and MMCs, and city managers, DGs, the whole of government. So it should be easy to measure progress in that regard, to say, we have given this company work to construct the road. They say they are a BE company. Where are they? When we go out there, we must look for them. And where is the road? So that you don't sit in head office and people send you a report that we have built the road, but the road is not there. Or it was built by a black economic empowerment company, but in reality, it's not there. So the DDM is going to help us because we are on the ground, we can see, we can meet people, we can question, and we'll make sure that our measures are real and real time, and we talk about what we see. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Deputy President. Honorable M.O. Siate. Oh, sorry. Honorable Mkalipi. Deputy President, you can take a seat. There's a point of order.
But Madam Speaker, there is no DDM. There's nothing. This thing was introduced in 2019. 7 years later, there's no DDM.
Honorable Mkalipi, can you ask that question formally, not just ask it when you are not on the speaker's, list? I note it, but sorry, Honorable Siate.
I ignore Honorable Mkalipi today. Yes, Honorable Siate.
DP, Machabeng local municipality is another classical case of National Treasury and DWS interventions to strengthen capacity and resources. 44 billion was dispersed through RBI grants, with Val Central being implementing agency. Val Central, most of economic growth is unlikely to be actualized on infrastructure, just betting on water, something as basic as that. Would you have any different model of accountability, of monitoring, and just a tracing model of how you return the investment in all this infrastructure development on all the master plans? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Siat. Did you say Machabeng? Machabeng, that's in the Free State. Okay. One of the things that we are doing now as national government is to prioritize intervention in municipalities. We use the phrase fix local government because we've realized that there are a lot of challenges in municipalities. Some of them, you give them grants, they spend them on what was not intended for, and sometimes they don't spend at all, and come end of the financial year, the money has to be returned to Treasury and delivery doesn't take place. So Machabeng will probably be one of the municipalities that will be put on our radar screen as we intervene in local government to be able to look at how they're spending their resources and so on. So I take your concern that your understanding of that municipality is that what they say they are going to do may not be done. So we'll immediately focus on them as well. There are about 100 and so municipalities that we are going to look at. When we meet, I did say on the issue of water, when we meet next Tuesday, we are looking at the municipalities. But we are also going to look at them beyond water, beyond electricity, just service delivery broadly. Must be something that worry us when we look at what municipalities are doing. So I will put Machabeng on the list. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Deputy President. Honorable members, let me remind you once again, we are not allowed to eat so openly in the House. That's why we have got a space for refreshment behind the screens of the dome. I now see members, they go there, they buy, they come back and even put it on the table. I've seen even some Powerades. I won't say who they are, but our members. Can we please just try to manage? Let's not point. Order, honorable members. Just behind you, Honorable Mkalipi, I saw a Powerade. The person who's raising the hands up, I have seen, she just went down. But honorable members, seriously, let me just remind you once again about what we need to do. I understand you may be wanting to snack. The Honorable Matasha, thank you. There is a place where we can snack at the back and then come back. Honorable Daniels?
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, it's a very important point that you are raising because this was raised in the Chief Whip Forum meeting. And it is now the responsibility of the Chief Whips to ensure that it doesn't take place for the same reasons that you have cited. If it is Honorable
Thank you, honorable members.
If it is Honorable Natasha, then
That is why I was reminding all the members, and I'm sure the Chief Whips will take the necessary responsibility as they must. The next question, question 5, has been asked by Honorable J.S. Malima. The question is with reference to his capacity as the Special Envoy to Sudan. What is the scope or extent of his mandate in relation to the resolution of the violent conflict in the region, and has he found what is required from both the South African government and African Union to resolve the crisis in Sudan? Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me thank Honorable Malema for raising the issue of dealing with conflict in our continent. At the moment, Honorable Speaker, I am a special envoy of President Ramaphosa focusing on the conflict in South Sudan. My mandate is to support the implementation of the revitalized agreement on the resolution of conflict in South Sudan, what we refer to as the RACs. South Africa, along the AU and IGAD, is a guarantor of this process. The C5 is tasked with leading the process. Now, the C5 is made out of South Africa, which is chairing at the moment, Algeria, Chad, Nigeria, and Rwanda. It was established by a resolution of the AU Peace and Security Council on the 5th of December 2014. The C5 called for cessation of hostilities, release of detainees, and inclusive dialogue. Ultimately, the peace process in South Sudan depends on the political will of its leaders for the implementation of the revitalized agreement. Our role is to support them and not substitute their responsibility. Since I assumed the role of special envoy in South Sudan and in pursuit of the peace process, I've undertaken 2 working visits already to Juba, and the most recent was October last year. But when I went there in 2024, I met all the belligerent parties, including a meeting with President Salva Kiir Mayardit. Myself and Minister Naledi Pandor at the time held a meeting with the head of the UN mission in South Sudan, Mr. Nicholas Haysom. I was informed, sadly, Honorable Speaker, that he passed on yesterday. A great South African who was committed to democracy and peace in our continent. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Honorable Speaker, we subsequently, with Minister Pandor at the time, held 15 more meetings with other parties during the 4 days we spent in Juba. We were convinced that we are making good progress when we were hopeful that they will hold democratic elections at the end of this year. However, in January this year, fighting erupted once again amongst the belligerent forces and intensified early this month as well, leading to the displacement of 280 people in what they call Jonglei State. The latest fighting is yet another illustration of the complexity of the search for peace in South Sudan. In January this year, Minister Lamula also led a ministerial delegation of the C5 countries that I mentioned to Juba. This meeting was followed in February this year by a C5 Heads of State Summit, which was chaired by President Ramaphosa on the margins of the African Union Summit. The summit was also attended by representatives of the UN Secretary General, and the summit then reiterated once more the call for cessation of hostilities, consideration for the release of the first vice president. When I went to Juba last year, I wanted to see Vice President Riek Machar, but he was house arrested and charged and appearing in court. And there are others as well who are charged with him. So the leaders have asked for the release of Dr. Machar, who's the first vice president. They've also asked for the promotion of inclusive political dialogue and the creation of a conducive political and security environment necessary for the holding of elections. Last year, all the parties agreed that they will come to South Africa. We can host them for a dialogue, including with the president. So we will be following that up when we engage with them again. Let me also say, Honorable Speaker, that South Africa will also utilize its role on the African Union Peace and Security Council, which we will be holding from 1st of April to March 2028, to mobilize diplomatic and political, technical, and financial assistance required to support South Sudan to hold credible, free and fair elections. Honorable Speaker, we recognize the depth of humanitarian crisis precipitated by the conflict in Sudan as well. To this end, we intend to engage the neighborhoods, wider international community and various non-state actors and NGOs for a coordinated response to the unfolding humanitarian crisis, which is also exacerbated by the civil war that also is taking place in South Sudan. I recently met with the regional leadership of the International Committee of the Red Cross and will continue to engage them on the efforts they are undertaking to respond to this problem, not only of South Sudan, but of the entire Sudan, as we all can see. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, to resolve this conflict, it is incumbent upon the broad leadership of South Sudan to demonstrate the requisite political will and responsible leadership necessary to implement the revitalized agreement that they have signed. Achieving this will require mutual trust, the cultivation and promotion of political consensus to implement the provisions of the revitalized agreement. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy President. The first supplementary question will be taken care of by the Honourable Mente on behalf of the Honourable Malema.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy President, the displacement of the people of Sudan is understated as per your answer. It's actually 11 million people that have been internally displaced. And also 4.5 million people have fled the country Sudan to the neighboring countries, which then is placing a heavy strain and an over-concentration in the refugee camps. This also has deepened the humanitarian crisis, which needs the countries that are hosting to put more in terms of humanitarian aid. But most importantly, Deputy President, is that some of the internal camps where the 11 million people are, especially in the area of Darfur, people are dying. They have shortages of food, they have shortages of water, the high mortality rate amongst children, and the malnutrition of children, and they are dying every day. There's also issues of cholera that is outbreaking, and there's very limited access of the NGOs. I hear you are mentioning the Red Cross, but they don't have access there due to the civil war. Now, my question is, what are the believable and tangible interventions which the AU is putting to remedy this situation, along with the C5? We can have the agreement that they pull out and come in and revive, but at the moment, there's a huge crisis. What are the believable remedies? Thank you.
The Honourable Deputy President.
Honourable Speaker, thank you very much. Thank you, Honourable Mente. You are quite right that you say I underestimated the problem. No, in fact, let me put it this way. The President appointed me as a special envoy to deal with South Sudan, not the Sudan as a whole. Now, the challenge with the question from Honorable Malema obviously is focusing on the Sudan. My worry in replying the way you think I should have is that I was going to give an academic reply. You know, when you read books and stuff, I can give you that answer, 11 million people, but I have not arrived there because I was not tasked to deal with the Sudan. But I accepted the fact that it is something the AU should look at. Remember, the Sudan is also part of the AU, both of them, even after the liberation of South Sudan, separate from Sudan, but they are both in the AU. And therefore, I'm convinced that the leadership of IGAD and the C5 will look into the matter, but I didn't want to reply on Sudan when I've not dealt with it, because otherwise I was going to give you an academic reply of what I've read in the books. Should the president ask me then to go beyond South Sudan and look at the Sudan, I will then be able to answer accurately. Because I think it's important that when we give answers to Parliament, we don't tell them what we read in the books. It must be real work that we do. But your concern is taken. You will see that in my answer there, even though I dealt mainly with South Sudan, I do say in this paragraph here, let me just go back to it quickly. I won't take a lot of time, Honorable Speaker. I do say here that we recognize the depth of the humanitarian crisis precipitated by the conflict in that region, and we do intend to engage a number of neighboring countries and also some of the international community, including the International Committee of the Red Cross, because we are looking at the humanitarian suffering that is happening in the Sudan itself. So perhaps in the next round of us coming back here, we would then be able to give you more concrete information about the Sudan itself, beyond the work we are doing in South Sudan. I'll discuss with Minister and the President to see how do we deal with that situation, because we won't close our eyes and say, no, we are busy with South Sudan, those one can wait. But we do need the leadership of the continent. So it's a matter, I think, that must serve in the AU. The leadership of the AU must look at it and say how they want us to take forward. But thank you very much for that concern. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Smith.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy President, in January 2024, the President met with the leader of Sudan's Rapid Support Forces to find a resolution to the Sudanese civil war. But in October last year, the RSF embarked on what human rights organizations refer to as summary executions, ethnic cleansing, and acts of genocide, as it massacred some 2,000 individuals, including women, children, and the elderly. By subsequently ignoring the clear evidence of ethnic erasure and failing to address the RSF's genocidal intent, South Africa once again comes across as hypocritical, given its response to similar conflicts in other parts of the world. Will the Presidency now do the right thing and condemn the Rapid Support Forces for their genocidal actions and commit South Africa to playing as active a role in ending this ethnic conflict as it has in other regions outside of Africa?
The Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Yes, Honourable Smith, the President will never ignore genocide and the sufferings of people. What we need to do is to make sure that the intervention in the Sudan must be the intervention of the AU. And to the extent that all of us are concerned, obviously, we will ensure that the leaders in the AU look into the matter. 11 million people displaced, there's hunger and malnutrition, and so it is compelling that the EU should really look into the matter. And I'm sure the President will engage with the other leaders in the AU to ensure that we look at the situation in the Sudan. We will not ignore that. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Douglas.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Deputy President, many conflicts on the African continent, including the ongoing crisis in Sudan and South Sudan, are increasingly linked to geopolitical competition over strategic resources and spheres of influence, even from outside forces. As a Pan-Africanist organization committed to African peace and sovereignty, the MK Party believes Africa must guard against situations where external powers exploit instability for strategic gain. In your engagement as Special Envoy, what steps is South Africa taking within the African Union to ensure that the peace process in Sudan is firmly African-led, insulated from external geopolitical manipulation, and focused on a negotiated settlement that protects Sudan's sovereignty and long-term stability? Thank you.
The Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Thank you, Honourable Douglas, for the follow-up. The resolution of conflicts in the continent of Africa is led by the African leaders as we speak. As I said, the AU is involved, C5, IGAT, all of them there. But your observation is also correct that the other forces are there. When I was in South Sudan, there were people from the US and Europe and so on. So you find them there because they've got interest in the minerals. That's what it's all about. In South Sudan is rich with oil. The Sudan itself, many of the African countries have minerals. And some of these people, unlike us in the South, when they get involved to resolve conflict, is about what they can get out of the minerals of those countries. So you are quite right that we need to guard against that and ensure that the resolutions of this conflict must be us who drive them, who make sure that they are resolved, and we resolve them for the interests of Africans. Because these others, they want to take. You'll see now what's happening in the DRC and all those countries. When these other forces come in, no sooner they are there, they are looking at what to take. So I agree with you that let's intensify the leadership of the African leaders to resolve this conflict and make sure that the resources of the African countries, the minerals and everything must be for the benefit of Africans. And that's what we're going to do. Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker.
The fourth supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Boshoff.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker and Honourable Deputy President. Just two remarks around the question itself and response to it. I think it seems to me that the EFF didn't make an error when they asked about Sudan rather than South Sudan. Maybe it is because of the Pan-Africanist inclination to try and deny that the colonial borders have been changed and that a new state came into existence. And then also I see the un-African bias even by South Africa in a humanitarian crisis of this magnitude, not getting the attention than other similar or less serious circumstances elsewhere in the world. But what I would like to know from you is in terms of the formation of the state of South Sudan as a state liberated from Sudanese domination, how
Thank
would
you,
you
Honourable
justify
Member.
that in the light of the the African Union's
Thank you, Honourable
stance
Member. Your time has
on
expired.
colonial borders?
The Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable Member, I did say earlier that Sudan is part of the AU. So they are part of the AU. The reason why I didn't give a detailed response on the Sudan is because I'm not working on that yet. My responsibility for now ends in South Sudan. Not that I don't want to deal with it, but so far I'm delegated to deal with South Sudan. That's why I was saying that I shouldn't answer questions on the Sudan as if I'm working on the problems there. Until such time the President says, deal with the Sudan as a whole as well. Otherwise, I can give you a report about the Sudan, the conflict there, and what has been happening until South Sudan got independent from the Sudan in 2011, and the fight of the RSF and so on. But it will be what I read. I don't think you are interested in what I read. You are interested in the work I do. And so far, my work ends in South Sudan. It might well be that the AU leaders will say, Deputy President of South Africa, now move over and engage the conflicting parties in the Sudan as well. But I'm saying that we are concerned as well about the humanitarian suffering there, the displacement of people. So I think it's something the AU leaders will be looking at, I'm sure. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Mente.
Yeah, siyabulela. No, Deputy President, ungaba hoyiwe nonyana baka Fairwood. Xa besizama nge-Pan-Africanism. Sawubathatha sibabeke. Bangaba khona kwi-GNU, are not part of that. Since you are mentioning that EU is still busy with the matter, I want to propose to you, Deputy President, that consider a recommendation to IDERCO that it must use the African Renaissance as well as the International Cooperation Fund to look into providing the humanitarian aid to the victims in Sudan so that they can have access to food, water, and especially medical care. But also I want to check why was such an idea never explored during your intervention, even with the South Sudan, as well as we have an issue. IDECO
Thank you,
yesterday
Honourable Mente. Your
came
time
to
has expired.
the IR committee and said there is peace in Sudan, they are ready for elections. Yet we are hearing something else today. Thank you.
The Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable Honorable Member, I understand the Pan-Africanism. That's why I didn't comment on it. It's just displaced. The issue you are raising is, of course, important about how do we deal with the humanitarian crisis. With respect to South Sudan, we are already tapping into the African Renaissance Fund. You are saying extend it to the Sudan as well. It's something that I'll discuss with the President because it has to go to the leadership of the AU to look into that. But there may be also other resources that we may be able to tap with. But as I said earlier, abanye bafika nama-agenda wabo. Banayo imali, kodwa we need to be careful, because when we take their money, something must give. So we'll need to be careful, but we will take that proposal forward. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The last question has been asked by the Honourable Hadebe. The question is with reference to his participation and his keynote address at the South African Youth Economic Council 4th Annual Mining Indaba Business Dialogue. What are the full details of the concrete resolutions or commitments that emerged regarding critical minerals beneficiation, inclusive ownership and youth participation in the mining value chain, and implementation plans that are in place to ensure that the Republic moves decisively from exporting raw minerals to building competitive local industries that create sustainable jobs and broaden ownership? The Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Let me thank Honorable Hadebe for making sure that we remain focused on issues of the youth. On the 11th of February this year, Minister Stella Ndabeni delivered a keynote address on my behalf at the 4th Annual Mining Indaba Business Dialogue convened by the South African Youth Economic Council, SAYEC, a youth-led non-profit organization that is advocating youth inclusion in South Africa's strategic economic sectors. SAYEC Mining Indaba Business Dialogue resolved that South Africa must move away from raw mineral exports and focus on sustainable job-creating beneficiation strategies, inclusive ownership, and youth participation in mining value chain. Through the critical mineral strategy, beneficiation hubs, and youth incubation programs, we are building industries in platinum, manganese, and vanadium that will power electric vehicles and clean energy. This is about jobs, ownership, and future where young South Africans will continue and lead in the mining value chain. Honorable Deputy Speaker, we agree with the outcomes of this youth mining indaba. We will continue to work with them to ensure that these outcomes are realized. Together with SAYEC, we agree that critical minerals or critical minerals beneficiation is a national priority. As such, this must be supported by a commitment to expanding local smelting, refining, and advanced manufacturing capacity so that youth-owned enterprises can benefit in this regard. Furthermore, participants recognize that unlocking the full value of South Africa's mineral endowment requires a coordinated public-private partnership, policy certainty, and improved regulatory efficiency. In respect of implementation plans, measures are in place to ensure decisive movement from exporting raw minerals to building competitive local industries. The government is implementing a critical minerals and metal strategy that was approved by Cabinet in May last year, and the exploration implementation plan aiming to transform from raw mineral exports to local beneficiation, high-tech manufacturing, and increased local ownership. The critical minerals and metal strategy is aligned with national efforts to drive industrialization, promote inclusive growth, and enhance the country's contribution to global clean energy supply chains, including, as I said earlier, electric vehicles, hydrogen fuel cells, and also battery storage. Furthermore, the special economic zones dedicated to mineral beneficiations will be expanded, offering tax incentives and infrastructure support. Public-private partnership will co-invest in beneficiation plans. Government is also implementing procurement reforms and enterprise development programs that are aimed at expanding market access for youth-owned businesses in both the public and the private sectors. These measures are aligned with broader industrial policy efforts to promote local beneficiation, strengthen supply development, and broaden participation in the mining economy. Lastly, Honorable Deputy Speaker, as government, we are also rolling out technical training programs through TVET colleges and universities directly linked to beneficiation industries. These include mining engineering diplomas, beneficiation academies, and professional certificates in mineral beneficiation, all designed to link directly to the country's industrialization agenda. Though through this coordinated intervention, government remains committed to ensuring that South Africa builds diversified mineral value chains that create sustainable jobs, expand industrial capacity, and broaden economic ownership, particularly amongst the youth of our country. I thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Radebe.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy President, thank you for the response. My follow-up question is, given the persistent barriers faced by young people in accessing opportunities in the mining sector, what specific interventions will the Deputy President champion to improve access to funding? I'm happy the Deputy President mentioned rolling out technical skills, but my question is specific on historically marginalized and mining affected communities. I thank you.
The Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable Radebe, one of the things I mentioned earlier was that the Minister of DTIC, Minister Pakstau, launched the Transformation Fund. Amongst others, we want these resources to be accessed by young people in our country. There are also programs in the presidency that are driven from there that ensures that young people have access to economic opportunities, to funding, and make sure that they can expand their businesses. So we will continue to work with SAEC to ensure that the decision they take and that they took at this youth mining in Daba are implemented, because it's one sector where we want young entrepreneurs to go into. Sectors like mining and finance have been inaccessible to young people, youth entrepreneurs, and therefore we will ensure that they have access to funding to be able to play a role in sectors like those. Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Sapu.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Honourable Deputy President, in reference to the resolutions and the implementation plan that you just articulated, which is clear and practical. Now, my question is, how does then the government plan to engage and collaborate with youth structures and key role players within the industry? And how does these plans that you just articulated are going to be monitored to ensure that they become impactful and effective to the young people that are struggling to access the sector that you spoke about? Thank you very much.
The Honourable Deputy President.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable Sapo, yes, as I said, we will continue to work with SAIC. We've also agreed on the expansion of what we call phase 2 of the Junior Mining Exploration Fund, that it should be made available in this regard for this purpose to support these young entrepreneurs. So we will expand funding opportunities because one of the big challenges in mining is obviously exploration, which is very costly. That's why you don't find quick entry into the mining sector by black companies or even triple B companies because of the costs involved. So we need to make sure that they get access to this fund as well to be able to go into this. And we will also look at the mining charters and see how we can explore the provisions there to make sure that we bring more youth entrepreneurs into the sector. So we are exploring all that, and as I said, we're working very closely with them because they are tackling a very challenging industry, or a sector rather, and therefore they are going to need a lot of support from government to be able to be successful in that sector. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Michalakis.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy President, we will only be able to build competitive industries through beneficiation if we meet two conditions. Those conditions are that we have sufficient competitively priced electricity and that those industries are sustainable and profitable. What evidence do you, Mr. Deputy President, have that demonstrates that either of these conditions are in place? Thank you.
The Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Thank you for the follow-up, Honorable Michalakis. Yes, for industries to succeed, they do need reliable energy, reliable water, reliable infrastructure. I'm quite pleased that somehow we have been able to resolve the challenges of electricity. You know, we can't say for sure that we'll never have this problem again, but where we are now, we are about 70% or more of energy reliability factor. And therefore, we, quite comfortable that many of the industries that we want to see thriving will be able to do so. Of course, one of the issues, Honorable Member, that we are dealing with is the price of electricity. As you know, particularly the refineries, those kind of businesses consume a lot of electricity, and they are the ones who have been really complaining about the high price of electricity. But we know that the minister, through ESCOM, made some concessions for those industries so that they must continue to invest in South Africa and create jobs. So the foundation is there to ensure sustainable growth by ensuring that there's reliable energy supply. We must just sort out the water challenge. There's a lot of investments now in our infrastructure. We are sorting out the ports, the rail, the roads, and so on. So I'm quite convinced that where we are in terms of pushing for growth, a lot of those elements are in place. And not 100%, but I think we're on the road to real recovery in the economy because, amongst others, we have sorted out the energy problem. And we are now going to move with speed to ensure that we deal with the water crisis as well. We are moving on the other sectors as well. Once those things are in place, surely the investors should come in and invest in these sectors. I know that some of the refining companies were saying, oh, we're going to leave because electricity is expensive. We have given them concession. Now they should stay and invest, and we will attend to the other challenges. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
The fourth supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Lonzi.
Good afternoon, Deputy President.
Good afternoon.
I had prepared a supplementary, but I think when you mentioned the issue of TVET colleges and mining colleges,
yes,
it triggered me because a few weeks back, the EFF had presented a motion before this Parliament to deal with the issue of the lack of space in post-secondary education. We've got many young people who are passing matric, but they are not finding themselves in universities, in TVET colleges, and even in these mining colleges that you're talking about, in agricultural colleges. And we said to this House, why don't we mandate Parliament to investigate the lack of space in post-secondary education? Give it timelines, give it terms of reference, so that it can come back to this House and say, how can we find a long-lasting solution to this problem of people that pass matric but don't get into post-secondary education? Is that something that the Deputy President can be able to join us on that call so that collectively we can rally behind ensuring that once people pass matric, they must find themselves in post-secondary education, whether it's university, whether it's a college, whether it's a TVET college, whether it's a mining college, or any other skills center. Thank you, Deputy President.
The Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Honourable Member. I don't know if Honourable Manamela is here. I don't see him. In January this year, myself and the President met with Honourable Manamela and the Deputy Minister of Higher Education. And one of the things we discussed was exactly that. And Honourable Manamela, I'm sure will confirm to you that the President said before he left there, go and build more universities and colleges. So that directive is out. So please engage him and check him how far he is. But the directive is out because we were concerned, as you are, that we now have a different problem. In the past, we were worried that, we don't have our children in colleges and universities. Now they've come up. And we can't have a situation where we can't provide that space. So it has been done. The directive has been out from the President. Obviously, to build a college and university, obviously, might take 2 years. So in the meantime, might be to create space through other means that can be done. I know in other universities, they would create, those things that you can build quicker, temporarily whilst you are building. But definitely, South Africa needs more universities and colleges. Our children are out there in big numbers. They want to learn. We shall not disappoint them. Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable Khadebe.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, how will the government ensure that South Africa leverages its critical minerals not just for exports, but to establish domestic industries such as battery manufacturing that provide long-term, high-quality jobs for youth, particularly in mining-impacted regions? Thank you.
The Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Obviously, one of the things we need to do, Honorable Khatebe, is that we need to ensure we have requisite skills because we have been an extracting economy, taking out critical minerals to other countries. We didn't put more efforts in building skills. So we are now doing that because when you ask people, why are you not beneficiating? They will say, well, we don't have the skills. So we take out the minerals, we send them to other countries, and we buy finished goods. We have now decided, no, let's benefit from our own minerals. Therefore, we need to ensure we have the skills to produce finished goods and export finished goods. Obviously, in the short term, you may not have all the skills that you need, but those companies that can produce those goods, they have those technologies, should come and invest here in South Africa, create jobs here so that we can export finished goods. So this is our approach now, that move away from extracting and exporting and make sure that we beneficiate, we strengthen localization, and whilst we bring other companies that have expertise, we also build local expertise. We train, we make sure that particularly the youth have the skills that are required by the modern economy. That's what we are doing. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
That concludes questions to the Deputy President, and I thank the Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Honorable members. You have been a very good audience. Thank you so much.
Long live the DP!
Order, honourable members. The last item on the order paper is a debate on an urgent matter of national public importance in terms of Rule 130 in the name of Dr. M.A. Maimane on the escalating crisis in the Middle East following the recent US attack on Iran and the implications this has on South Africa. I now recognize the Honourable Maimane.
Honorable members, Bagaitsu Dumelang. Today we sit and consider this urgent debate about a crisis that is unfolding in the Middle East, which is fast becoming a South African crisis. A crisis that has got far-reaching ramifications and ultimately a reset of our geopolitics. Honorable members, the question we should ask ourselves today is, whose interests are we here to serve? Are we here to serve the interests of South Africans, or do we have other interests? I begin really my debate today with the words by Kwame Nkrumah, who said, we faced neither east nor west, we faced forward. It was a statement